Did you see what Ben Johnson told the Commanders brass?
Oh, I saw. There's definitely a battle of he said, she said, of we didn't want you, we dumped you, I dumped. It's this happens all the time.
There's a lot of drama.
Yes.
When it comes to what happened with Ben Johnson and the Commanders, it sounds like they were close to hiring him, or at least they wanted him.
Yeah, they wanted him, and then there's always more. Like, this is the classic. Whenever you don't get your guy, then you never wanted your guy. And when you don't get the job, you didn't really want it. I mean, this is just par for the course, but this one's getting a little ugly.
Yeah, I haven't seen what the Commanders said. I just read a story that Ben Johnson, well, I guess I have seen what the Commanders said because the Commanders would have leaked this.
Yes.
But it's the idea that Ben Johnson interviewed terribly, and he hated the fact that the Commanders guys were all basketball guys.
Yes.
And he called them that. He called them basketball guys because Magic Johnson was in there.
He questioned their football acumen. But
he said they were too confident in their football opinions.
But let me laugh at this.
But aren't we all?
This is where that is true. Remember, it was at the like a third of U.S. males think they could beat like a silverback gorilla in a fight as well, and like land an airplane if they had to. We're very confident in our opinions. I'm not confident in most things.
I'm 0 for 2 in those.
Yeah,
those two.
I'm like, I'm going to die in all those situations. But let me ask you this, Commanders. If you were so put off by his interview, right, you didn't want to hire him, why did you get on an airplane to go fly to see Ben Johnson a second time for a second interview, seemingly to give him a job, when Dan Quinn, who you ended up hiring, you didn't fly to meet Dan Quinn, nor did you fly Dan Quinn out on a private plane. You made Dan Quinn's ass walk through the Washington, D.C. airport because you sent him away. And you could have hired Dan Quinn at any point, but you didn't. You interviewed Ben Johnson, and then you went to fly to interview Ben Johnson again. So if he was so bad of an interview, why? That's a load of crap.
So basically, what you're saying is they liked him.
Yes.
They were going to go see him again.
To give him the job.
He pulled out, and that pissed them off.
Yes.
Because apparently he pulled out as they were flying there.
His agent sent them a text while they were on a private plane flying to meet Ben Johnson, seemingly to give him the bag, which is what he wanted. And Ben Johnson's agent texted them in the air and said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm guessing that billionaires don't handle that very well. And now we get it leaked out that he was such a terrible interview.
So
stop it.
You don't see that often where a guy kind of screws over a team like that.
No,
and so that's probably sour grapes.
Yeah, it's 100% sour grapes. Because again, it makes no sense. Go find the video of poor Dan Quinn being schlubbed through the airport on his own. Meanwhile, Ben Johnson's getting flown privately and they're flying out to see him. You think Dan Quinn's like, once he got hired, he's like, really, guys? Like, Ben Johnson got the private plane twice? My ass has to fly commercial? The hell, man? They're like, shut up, Dan. Take the job and be happy. You know, just always realize that when these stories leak, they're leaked for a purpose, and it's to save face. No organization wants to admit that they didn't get their guy, certainly to have him stay in Detroit as a coordinator, and no coach wants to believe that he was passed over. You know, this is par for the course. Like Mike Norvell, I had no intention of taking the Alabama job. I'm happy to stay at Florida State and take a big fat raise.
All right, well, Commies got Cliff Kingsbury anyway. Well, they got Dan Quinn. And Cliff Kingsbury, which is pretty good I'm not going to lie, that's a pretty good combo.
I think so, because Dan Quinn's bringing over one of his guys from Dallas to run his defense, but one of the conditions of Dan Quinn being hired was that they wanted Dan Quinn to run the defense. They wanted Ron Rivera to run the defense, and Rivera was like, no, I can't do both. I just need to be the head coach, and I can assist. I guess Dan Quinn is going to run their defense, and that his defensive coordinator that's bringing over from Dallas will be his assistant.
That's a pretty good combo, man.
I think so. Look, Dan Quinn did a nice job there. And now if you're Washington, it just comes down to, can you draft your quarterback?
Yeah, find your guy.
If you find your guy and you're going to get, well, I mean, maybe you move up to one, but you're going to get at least your second pick, and we'll see where that goes.
That division got pretty interesting because Kellen Moore is now the offensive coordinator in Philly.
Yeah.
And he used to be in Dallas. And then, Cowboys lose Quinn, so they have to replace him. Washington gets Quinn and Kingsbury. I don't know what New York's done. They're kind of weird.
I don't know what
they got rid of Wink.
Yeah, I don't know what they're. Where did they?
They hired the guy from the Titans.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not very inspiring.
Did you also hear the weird Vrabel thing that came out over the weekend?
Yeah, that he's too big.
Yeah.
And he's too intimidating.
Yeah. So Dana Rossini, I guess, was talking to the Senior Bowl, and one
I was going to address this in Stock Watch next.
Yeah. Someone said that they just thought that, when he's amongst the old white rich guys, that he makes them uncomfortable because he's large and intense.
Yeah, he's like too imposing.
Yeah. He's an alpha.
God bless America.
Wow.
I love these sorts of things. The way people get hired, and then Stephen A. Smith is claiming racism with the Cliff Kingsbury thing.
Why?
Because he said that Cliff Kingsbury keeps getting jobs based on people he knows and not his merit, and that doesn't happen to black folk, which was nice. I like to see the, because, a bunch of minorities did get hired this hiring cycle, but apparently he's upset that Cliff Kingsbury, who a lot of people wanted to hire, he took the job in Washington from Eric Bieniemy, so now that's racist, just so you know.
All right,
because if Cliff Kingsbury was black, he would not be getting these sorts of things. Stephen A., by the way, just finding out that networking works. It's 2024. When you build good relationships, you have a good reputation, you do tend to get other jobs. Oh, and by the way, he runs a pretty good offense. Which, I don't know if you know, but when you're an offensive coordinator, they like when you run good offenses and you put up a lot of points and help quarterbacks. That's kind of one of those things. But keep going,
Screaming A. Screaming A is always getting in your
Keep going,
kitchen.
Stephen A.
He will. And he will continue to make millions.
And you're blowing it because you can't stay off the weed.
Now you don't have to stay off the weed, man. You can be on as much weed as you want.
Somebody texts, was Ben wrong? Ben Johnson? No, probably not. I got to be honest with you. We thought that this, look, Dan Schneider was a mess.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, one of the worst owners in all of sports.
Hands down.
But this new guy, Josh Harris.
Yeah.
And he's got Magic Johnson there and I don't know who else is in there, but we thought that was a great deal for that franchise, right?
People seem to like it.
Schneider's out. So far, sneaky bad, right? With this drama crap coming out.
A little rough.
And then Dan Quinn, come on. They didn't want to hire Dan Quinn.
No, they did not.
They hired him after everything else fell through. And I think they still got a good coach. I'm just saying that he clearly was not their first choice. So they kind of botched it.
Yeah.
And then they have drama with Ben Johnson. I don't know. It's not looking, and then you have the Cliff Kingsbury thing where he's in Las Vegas and you steal him and now you fire Bieniemy. I don't know, man. They're looking very Dan Schneider-y there in Washington.
But the GM they hired, that Adam Peters guy, who's a San Fran guy, they were pretty high on him. People said that was a very good one. So I'll give him that. The head coaching search was ugly and you ended up with a guy that you didn't want originally. But I think you got a pretty good offensive coordinator. You got a nice GM, and now you got a chance to draft a franchise quarterback. I'm keeping an open mind, but yes, when you're a new owner, you don't want your first couple moves to be so clunky. Like in Carolina right now, Carolina, his name is Mud. That thing has been botched.
David Tepper? Yeah.
And so if you're...
Well, he's not a new owner, though. Well, he's
relatively new. And since he's been there, it's been... So if you're Harris, just make sure that from here on forth, for the next couple of years, you just let your guys do their thing and just step back. If we're talking about you as an owner on a regular basis, that's usually not a good thing.
Right.
Just step away and let them do their job.